So in today's video, I'm starting a new weaving project. It's called the Prairie Bloom towels from Handwoven. This one's going to give me a bit of a challenge because it's going to require me to use a tension box for the sectional again, which I've done before. But this time, basically, I have a couple of things. Number one, I sold my first 2 towels. There was, in my city, we have this exhibition for weaving every November, and I decided they have something called like a co-op booth where you can put a couple of pieces, see if they're going to sell, that sort of thing. And you know, I lack confidence sometimes in the work that I do, so I did that, and I actually sold the 2 towels. So I was really impressed with myself. Gave me a little bit more confidence that maybe I could do a craft show, or maybe I could do, sell a few more. And it's not because I don't have a job, because I do. I thought it'd be nice to be able to sell some stuff on the side, because that way I could take that money and put it back into my hobbies. So basically I wanted to make a few more towels, for next year, maybe next fall or something like that, and have something to sell and see if they, if they go or not. And if not, then, some people will have some awesome Christmas gifts. As I said, I wanted to do the Prairie Bloom towels. The thing with the Prairie Bloom towels is that there are several sections on my sectional which will be the same color, okay, which is going to be natural. And then you've got a few colors inside the actual pattern. So right now I wanted to actually spin onto the spools for my spool rack. I wanted to do the amount that was needed. So I'm going to do there's 4 towels in the set. I wanted to do 2 sets of that. So it's going to come to 8.5 yards for the warp. That's going to be basically 119 yards in total that I need for one section. And then basically, unfortunately, I've got, well, not unfortunately, but my counter happens to be meters, so I had to, convert that, and so it's about 100, I think it was 108.8, so I just rounded it up to 109 meters per section. Easy enough. I've done it before. I could do it again. But the last time I did it on my video, I used a manual bobbin winder, and it was like, after, you do this for like 100 yards, after a few spools, it's like, okay, the arm needs a break. At least my arm did. So it happened that this summer I was able to go to some destashed places, and I managed to find actually an electric bobbin winder by Leclerc. It's a really old one, but works just fine. And so I tried to set it up actually a couple of nights ago, and I thought, how does this work? So in the old video that I have, you'll see that my tension box is on the back beam of my loom. The thread goes through my harnesses, the heddles are out of the way, through the harnesses, and then it goes through my tension box. And the only reason it's going through my tension box is because I need to use the counter, right? It doesn't have to go through a tension box when you're just trying to wind onto the spool. And so it's going through my tension box, it's wrapping around my wheel, basically, and then I'm able to put it onto, onto the spool. But with the electric bobbin winder, there's a foot pedal, and so of course I need to be close to a plug, so I had to move the tension box actually a little bit closer. So now my tension box is on my front beam. So let me give you a little bit of a visual for that. Okay, I'm going to readjust the camera. Okay, so my setup here, as you can see, I've got my tension box on the front beam of my loom. I've got my, oh, hold on, it's tangled here. I've got my spool basically of the natural yarn, the natural 8/2 cotton down here where it's just coming through. I'm just putting it through one of the dents. I have just put it through, some people say you don't even need to do that, but I've put it through the dowels. I have put it around the wheel in the front, basically, which has the counter, okay? And you want to make sure that you put it around the wheel in such a way that when it actually advances, the counter advances. Because in my other video, you'll notice my first mistake was to put it on backwards, and of course, it was going backwards, not forwards. So I had a few snafus in my first use of the tension box. So I have that all done, and that's great. This is the Leclerc bobbin winder that I got. It's only a single one. It's not the double end one, okay? So I looked for videos on, okay, how do you wind the bobbin? Most of them were for the double end one, which was fine, but I'm like, I need a counter. Like, I need a very specific amount. I can't just wind it like as if it's a bobbin for the weft, right? So I couldn't find any videos for that. I decided, okay, let's try and figure out my own setup. So finally I realized that the other night I was basically sitting on this side trying to see, could of course not see my numbers, and I was trying to move it because of course when it winds, it only winds in one spot, so you've got to kind of move it with your finger. Because you're going at a high speed, people suggested that I wear a glove or something like that so I don't cut my fingers. Again, I don't know if I would or not, but didn't want to chance having some sort of paper cut or anything like that, so I'm wearing a glove like this. So I'm going to reset it. We're going to try with the foot pedal. It goes at different speeds, obviously, and I'm going to show you basically what I do. You may not be able to see it from the side here, so let's see if I can adjust it so you can see a little bit better from the side what it is that I'm doing. But basically, I'm sitting behind. I'm able to, I can even lean here or whatever, but I only need my right hand, because I'm right-handed, to just move the thread back and forth, and then I'm able to actually watch the counter without any problems and slow it down as I get to 109 meters, and then stop it. And again, you got to keep in mind that the 109 meters is here, so again, I pull it out a little bit at the end and snip it. And down here, there's a little notch, basically, that allows it to go straight, and so that it doesn't fall off the wheel, because that's the big thing, is that you don't want to have, obviously, a miscalculation. If you saw my Call of the Crew Towel videos, one of them is basically I'm weaving along, everything's beautiful, and then I realize one section of the sectional is almost like 2 feet shorter than it should be. So it was like, oh my goodness, like what did I do in that particular section of the sectional? It was too short, and we had to kind of problem solve for that. So let's see how it goes, and then we'll move on to doing all my spools. All right. So first, first it has to catch. Okay. Okay, I guess that's true. My hand goes on this side because my bobbin winder likes to float around the desk, so maybe find out how to secure it if you have a really old version like I do. Okay, so basically you're going back and forth until you get the amount you need. My counter squeaks and does not like going past a certain amount. Alright. Alright, and 70. Oh, don't need to go that fast. There we go. And 94. Okay, getting close. There we go. And I'm done. So a lot less effort and a lot quicker. If I need to do 15 of these with the all natural, and then I've got to come back and I will probably make another video because I've got the other sections have multiples of colors, and I'm trying to figure out how can I use the electric bobbin winder to do the multiple colors, or am I going to do it on the actual warping board? So stay tuned and find out what happens with that. Okay, so I hope this helps. Okay, so I've done 18 spools. Okay, a couple of snafus along the way that I wanted to say. First of all, it's much faster when you're using the electric bobbin winder. My bobbin winder, as I said, seems pretty ancient. The machine was fine, the plug was fine, but when I went to lift the pedal, it was really hot. So I don't know if it's just because mine is really old or something like that, or if that's just typical. So be careful of that. Number 2, my snafu was that I only needed 14 sections on the sectional. So basically, because each warp is 8.5, I times it by 14. I got my 119 yards that way, which I converted to meters. But my EPI is 18 EPI, right? So I need 18 threads of those natural. So I need really 18 spools. So I realized that when I got to like the 15th one, and I realized, oh my goodness, I still need 3 more. So make sure you do that. The other snafu is please make sure you reset. There's nothing worse than forgetting to reset. You start spitting the next one. I think I got like 22 yards in before I looked at the counter, only to realize I didn't reset it. So then you're unwinding 22 yards back onto your cone. So definitely check that out. The last thing was knots, that I'm not quite sure exactly how to deal with that. So again, 119 yards times 18, you're going to run into knots at some point because I had a huge cone of natural A2 cotton. So every once in a while I came across a knot. If it was like at the very beginning of the wind, then like twice, it was near the beginning of the wind. So basically I unwound it. This particular pattern needed to have floating salvages, so I thought, okay, I'll use those as floating salvages. Great. But it did happen obviously more than once. I think it happened about 4 or 5 times that I had knots, and some of them were like I know one was I think at 103 yards. So I'm like, usually if you're on a warping board, you just back up to the first peg, cut it there, make your knot there, and then continue on. So you haven't lost a whole lot in terms of wastage. Well, in this case, you would. So I'm hoping that as I put the different sections on the sectional and I get to one that has a knot, I can just, clip it or whatever, and hopefully it doesn't it doesn't offset. The worst thing it could do possibly is affect the last 1 or 2 sections of a particular spool or something that I might have to respool. But again, the amount that I will need will be substantially less, obviously, than 119 yards. So those are some little things that I ran into that you may want to keep in mind. But I think it took me, like, as I said, 30 minutes to do 18 spools, which is fantastic because last time it took me, I think, about 5 days. I was doing about 95 yards. And after I did about 4 spools manually, my arm was just like, I have a problem with my shoulder. It was just enough, right? And so I had to, okay, the next day I did another 4, and then I did another 4 until I had it all done. So obviously, if if you want to sell or you want to get started quickly, then obviously the electrical version is much better, right? So, and again, I got used stuff because it's so much cheaper to buy used than it is to buy brand new, and to make sure you actually like it. And so down the road, I may end up investing in something more new and more top of the line. But right now, it's, well, not top of the line in terms of Leclerc is great, but maybe the double-ended electric bobbin winder I think might maybe down the road. But for now, it works really, really well. I'm very, very happy. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you are using an electric bobbin winder and you're trying to figure out how to use a counter, which is actually attached to a tension box, this is my setup, and it worked really well for me. All right, have yourself a great day.